The fluorescent lights flickered overhead as Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her ear against the cold concrete wall of the hospital's basement. The sound was unmistakable, a rhythmic tapping, like Morse code, echoing from somewhere deep within the foundation. She had heard it every night for 3 weeks, always at exactly 3:17 a.m., always lasting precisely 4 minutes. Night, she had finally gathered the courage to investigate. Her breath formed small clouds in the frigid air as she traced the wall with trembling fingers, searching for any crack or opening that might explain the impossible sounds. The hospital had been built on solid ground. She had seen the architectural plans herself. There was nothing beneath this floor except earth and stone. Yet the tapping continued, growing more desperate. And then, just as Sarah's fingertips found a hairline crack in the wall, she heard something that made her blood freeze. A voice, faint but unmistakably human, whispering her name from somewhere impossibly far below. The tapping stopped. The voice fell silent. But Sarah knew, with a certainty that terrified her, that whatever lay beneath these floors had been waiting for her to find it. Sarah had always prided herself on her rationality. As head of neurology at Mercy General Hospital, she dealt in facts, diagnoses, and evidence-based medicine. Hallucinations were symptoms to be treated, not mysteries to be solved. But this psychological thriller, unfolding in her own workplace, challenged everything she believed about the boundaries between reality and delusion. The next morning, she found herself studying the hospital's blueprints with obsessive intensity. Built in 1962, Mercy sat atop with the original surveys described as stable bedrock. No basements, no sublevels, no hidden chambers. Yet the tapping continued, night after night, always at the same time, always in the same rhythm. Sarah began documenting everything: the duration, the intensity, the precise location of the sounds. Her colleagues noticed her growing fixation. Dr. Marcus Webb, the hospital's chief psychiatrist, cornered her in the break room with concerned eyes. "Sarah, you look exhausted. When was the last time you slept through the night?" She wanted to tell him about the sounds, about the voice that knew her name, but the words felt too fragile, too easily dismissed as stress-induced paranoia. The breakthrough came during a routine procedure. Sarah was performing a neurological assessment on a patient who had suffered a severe head injury, when the woman suddenly gripped her wrist with surprising strength. "You hear them too, don't you? The ones who tap. The ones who remember." Sarah's professional composure cracked. "What do you mean? Who remembers what?" But the patient had slipped back into unconsciousness, leaving Sarah with more questions than answers. That night, she returned to the basement with a portable recorder, determined to capture evidence of the phenomena that was slowly consuming her thoughts. As the clock approached 3:17 a.m., Sarah positioned herself against the wall where the sounds were strongest. The tapping began right on schedule, but this time she noticed something different. The rhythm wasn't random. It was deliberate, purposeful. Morse code. Her hands shook as she transcribed the pattern. D, O, W, N, H, E, R, E, W, I, T, H, U, S. The message repeated 3 times before falling silent, leaving Sarah staring at her notes with growing dread. Sleep became elusive as Sarah's investigation deepened. She spent hours in the hospital's archives, searching for any record of construction anomalies, accidents, or unexplained incidents. What she found was a dark secret that had been carefully buried in administrative files and incident reports. In 1963, just 1 year after the hospital's opening, 3 construction workers had gone missing during a renovation project in the basement. The official report stated that the men had simply abandoned their jobs, that Sarah discovered inconsistencies in the documentation. Their tools were found neatly arranged in the basement, their personal belongings left behind in the employee locker room. More disturbing was a handwritten note from the site supervisor, filed away and apparently forgotten. Strange sounds emanating from the foundation walls. Workers report hearing voices. Recommend immediate investigation. The investigation had never taken place. Instead, a new concrete floor had been poured over the original foundation. Sarah realized with growing horror that she might be hearing the voices of men who had been entombed alive, their cries echoing through decades of silence. The psychological toll of her discovery began to manifest in disturbing ways. She found herself drawn to the basement during her shifts, standing vigil by the wall as if she could somehow communicate with the trapped souls below. Her work performance suffered as she became increasingly distracted, making small errors that her colleagues couldn't help but notice. Dr. Webb confronted her again, this time with formal concern. "Sarah, I'm recommending you take a leave of absence. You're exhibiting signs of acute stress and possible auditory hallucinations." The irony wasn't lost on her. She was being diagnosed with the very symptoms she had spent years treating in others. But Sarah knew what she was hearing was real. The voices had become clearer, more distinct. She could make out individual words now, fragments of conversation that painted a picture of desperate men slowly running out of air in their concrete tomb. They spoke of families they would never see again, of work left unfinished, of the crushing weight of earth and stone above their heads. The twisted story that was unfolding challenged her sanity while demanding her attention. The first major plot twist came when Sarah discovered she wasn't the only one who could hear the voices. During a late-night shift, she encountered Janet Morrison, a night janitor who had worked at the hospital for over 20 years. Janet was standing in the same basement location, tears streaming down her face as she listened to the wall. "They've been trying to tell us something. All these years, they've been trying to warn us." She revealed that she had been hearing the voices since her first week on the job, but had been too afraid to report them. Who would believe us? But lately, they've been getting stronger, more urgent. Something's happening. Together, they began to piece together the messages. The trapped men weren't just calling for help. They were trying to warn about something else buried beneath the hospital. Something that had been there long before the construction began. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the basement's temperature when she realized their mystery was far more complex than she had initially believed. The unreliable narrator aspect of Sarah's experience became clear when she began to question her own perceptions. Was she actually hearing voices? Or was her mind creating elaborate justifications for sounds that had rational explanations? The line between reality and delusion blurred as she found herself in a moral dilemma. Should she report her findings to hospital administration, risking her career and credibility, or continue investigating alone? Her research led her to Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell, a former hospital administrator who had retired abruptly in 1964. Sarah tracked her down to a nursing home across town, where she found a woman haunted by decades of secrets. "I tried to stop them," she whispered, her eyes distant and fearful. "I tried to tell them what was really down there, but they wouldn't listen. They said it was just an old Native American burial ground, that it wouldn't matter." The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. The hospital had been built on sacred ground, and the construction had disturbed something that should have remained undisturbed. The missing workers had discovered this truth, and their knowledge had been silenced forever.
The mind-bending story took another turn when Sarah realized that the voices weren't just from the past, they were trying to prevent a future catastrophe. The hospital's newest construction project, a planned expansion that would dig deeper into the foundation, was scheduled to begin in just 3 days. The voices were growing more desperate because they knew that disturbing the burial ground further would unleash something far worse than their own trapped souls. Sarah's investigation revealed that several patients had reported strange dreams and visions in the weeks leading up to the construction. They spoke of shadowy figures walking the halls, of whispers in languages they didn't recognize, of an overwhelming sense of dread that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the hospital. The psychological thriller that had begun with simple tapping sounds was evolving into something far more sinister. She knew she had to act, but who would believe her? The hospital administration would dismiss her claims as stress-induced hallucinations. Her colleagues would question her mental stability. Yet the voices continued their urgent warnings, and Sarah found herself becoming their unwilling spokesperson for the living. The climax arrived when Sarah made a desperate decision to expose the truth. She gathered all her evidence, the recordings, the historical documents, the testimonies from Janet and other staff members who had experienced similar phenomena. Armed with this collection of dark secrets, she requested an emergency meeting with the hospital's board of directors. The presentation was met with skepticism and concern for her mental health. But Sarah had one final piece of evidence that changed everything. She had discovered that the construction company responsible for the original cover-up was the same firm contracted for the new expansion. The current project supervisor was the son of the man who had filed the original complaint about the voices. My father spent his entire life haunted by what happened here. He never forgave himself for not speaking up. He died believing those men were still down there, still trying to get out. The mystery began to unravel as more people came forward with their own experiences, creating a web of witnesses that couldn't be easily dismissed. The resolution came not with answers, but with action. The hospital board, faced with mounting evidence and potential legal liability, agreed to postpone the construction project pending a full investigation. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed Sarah's worst fears. There were indeed hollow spaces beneath the basement floor, and what appeared to be human remains. As the excavation began, Sarah stood vigil with Janet and the other witnesses who had finally found their voice. The first breakthrough came with a rush of stale air and the glint of metal tools in the darkness. But what they found challenged everything they thought they knew about the voices. The remains were there, but they were far older than the missing construction workers. The truth was more complex than Sarah had imagined. The voices belonged to multiple time periods: Native American spirits from the original burial ground, the construction workers who had discovered them, and others who had been drawn to investigate over the years. The hospital had become a repository for lost souls, all trying to warn the living about the danger of disturbing the sacred ground. The plot twist revealed that Sarah herself was now part of this eternal vigil, forever connected to the voices beneath the floors. The excavation at Mercy General Hospital revealed layers of history that had been buried for decades, but some mysteries remain unsolved. Sarah Chen returned to her position as head of neurology, but she was forever changed by her experience. She continues to hear the voices, not as harbingers of doom, but as guardians of memory, ensuring that the truth is never again buried beneath concrete and silence. What haunts me most about this twisted story isn't the supernatural elements, but the very human tendency to ignore inconvenient truths. How many other dark secrets lie buried beneath our everyday institutions? How many voices are still trying to be heard? If this psychological thriller left you questioning the boundaries between reality and delusion, I want to hear your thoughts. Share your theories in the comments below. Do you think Sarah was experiencing genuine supernatural phenomena? Or was her mind creating elaborate explanations for unexplainable sounds? Have you ever encountered something that challenged your understanding of what's possible? Hit that like button if this mind-bending story resonated with you. And don't forget to subscribe for more tales that blur the line between the psychological and the paranormal. There are more dark secrets waiting to be uncovered, more unreliable narrators whose stories demand to be told. Till next time, stay kind, stay sharp, and stay curious.